There's something the richest Jewish dynasties on this planet can detect the very instant they step foot inside another person's home. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it happens in under 7 seconds. 7 seconds. That's all the time they need to form a conclusion about you, about your future, and about the trajectory of your entire financial life. Now pause for a moment and really think about that. It isn't the square footage of your living room. It isn't whether your couch came from a designer showroom or a secondhand store. It isn't even how spotless your floors look or how neatly your pillows are arranged. It's something far quieter than that. Something so hidden in plain sight that the overwhelming majority of people, we're talking somewhere around 99 out of every 100, go their entire lives never realizing they're being silently evaluated by it. And that one overlooked detail, that tiny signal most people walk past every single day, is the exact reason so many hardworking human beings remain trapped in financial struggle from the cradle to the grave without ever grasping the real cause. What I'm about to open up for you in the next several minutes is something most rabbis I've known would never dare put on a public platform. This isn't a chapter pulled out of some glossy self-help paperback at an airport bookstore. This isn't one of those motivational pep talks that floods you with dopamine for 10 minutes and then evaporates from your memory before dinner. What I'm sharing is sacred knowledge, wisdom quietly preserved inside the most prosperous Jewish households for thousands of years. And it reveals precisely why certain homes seem to magnetize opportunity, while others, no matter how hard the people inside them work, seem to push money away like two magnets flipped in opposite directions. For more than 4 decades, I've devoted my life to the study of the Talmud, the mystical teachings of the Kabbalah, and the quiet financial traditions that have been woven into the fabric of Jewish life for over 3,000 years. My grandfather served as a rabbi in the old stone streets of Jerusalem. His father carried these same lessons across the villages of Eastern Europe long before the devastation of the war swept through that part of the world. And his father before him did the same. 7 generations, one unbroken chain of learning, passed from trembling hand to trembling hand, from one heart to another. So understand this. What I'm about to unfold for you is not speculation. It's not theory I read somewhere. I've walked, physically walked, through the marble entryways of billionaires and the modest kitchens of people who turned nothing into empires. I've also sat in the living rooms of families working 16-hour days who still can't figure out why the rent check bounces every single month. And in all those years, across all those homes, the difference between the people flourishing and the people drowning always narrowed down to the same set of invisible markers. Markers that the wealthiest Jewish families have been trained since the age they could walk to recognize instantly. By the time this video ends, you will know every single one of those markers. You'll finally understand why your home might be whispering messages of scarcity out into the universe without you having the faintest idea. And more importantly, I'm going to hand you the exact ancient practice to flip that energy on its head. But I'm warning you now, stay with me all the way through, because the single most transformative secret, the one capable of shifting your entire financial atmosphere in a matter of days, comes later in this video. Miss it, and everything else I've told you loses its power. I was 14 years old the first time I encountered this teaching. It was a Friday night, just after the Shabbat meal. The candles on the table were still flickering low. The warm aroma of freshly baked challah was still hanging in the air like a memory refusing to leave. My grandfather motioned for me to follow him into his cramped little study, the one lined floor to ceiling with leather-bound volumes older than most countries. He sat me down across from him, looked straight into my eyes with that piercing stare he had, and said something I have never been able to shake loose from my soul. He told me that a home isn't simply a place where a person resides. A home, he said, is a portrait of the person you're in the process of becoming. At 14, that sentence made no sense to me whatsoever. To my young mind, a home was just walls and a roof and maybe a dog in the yard. But then he pulled down one of those weathered volumes, opened it carefully, and guided my fingers across a passage that scholars had been wrestling with for 2,000 years. That passage taught that every physical space carries a kind of spiritual fingerprint, an invisible vibration, and that this vibration is never neutral. It's either pulling abundance toward you with every tick of the clock, or it's pushing it away from you just as relentlessly. There is no in-between. He explained that the affluent Jewish families of Europe, of the Middle East, of the Americas, had internalized this truth so deeply that when they stepped into someone's home, they could tell within 30 seconds whether that individual would rise financially or spend their life in quiet struggle. Not because of any supernatural gift, simply because they had been trained from childhood to read the signs, the real, physical, touchable signs that expose a person's inner relationship with money. Before he sent me off to bed that night, he made me give him my word that when the moment was right, I would pass this teaching on to others who were genuinely prepared to hear it. For years, I honored that promise quietly, sharing it only inside our community, only with those who came searching. But the world today is aching in ways I've never witnessed before. People are exhausted, buried under bills, drowning in comparison. So the time has finally come to bring this out into the open. The first time I saw this wisdom move mountains in my own personal life, I was 26 years old. I had just signed the lease on a cramped studio apartment that barely fit a mattress and a desk. I was teaching a few afternoons a week at a local synagogue, earning just enough to keep the lights on and food in the refrigerator. I had done everything the standard world insists you do. I tracked every expense in a notebook. I picked up side jobs on weekends. I squeezed every coin until it squeaked, and none of it moved the needle. The money trickled in through one door and marched right out through another, and I was caught in that loop month after miserable month. Then one quiet evening, my grandfather's words floated back into my mind. I stood up, looked around that tiny apartment, and for the first time in my life I actually saw it. Not the furniture, not the paint on the walls, but the energy. And I counted at least 5 distinct ways my living space was quietly announcing poverty to anyone, seen or unseen, who might be listening. I applied the exact method my grandfather had entrusted to me, the same one I'm going to walk you through in just a few minutes. And within 3 weeks, the whole landscape of my life tilted. A teaching position I hadn't even applied for landed in my lap. A debt I'd been carrying around like a stone for 2 long years was suddenly and mysteriously cancelled. A cousin I hadn't heard from in forever reached out with an offer that reshaped my finances permanently. That's when I stopped treating this as ancient philosophy. That's when it became, for me, undeniable spiritual technology. Now here's something I need you to hear clearly. Everything I'm sharing in this video is only a doorway. If you're ready to take this further and truly embed these ancient Jewish prosperity principles into the bones of your daily life, I put together a book called The Ancient Wealth Code. Inside, you'll find the full system. All 10 principles that Jewish families have quietly relied on for 3,000 years to build fortunes, safeguard them, and hand them down through the generations. It isn't a theory book, it's the playbook. You'll find the link pinned in the very first comment and tucked into the description below. Grab it today, because knowing without doing leaves you in exactly the same place you started. You might still be sitting there asking yourself, but why does any of this actually work? Here's the answer. The Talmud teaches that there are spiritual laws governing prosperity, protection, and abundance, the same way gravity governs the physical world. These laws predate money. They predate governments. They predate every economic theory scribbled on a chalkboard. The rabbis of antiquity spent lifetimes uncovering these invisible laws through deep study and observation, and they sealed them into specific instructions about how to live, how to arrange your environment, and how to present yourself to the world. When your life aligns with these laws, you stop swimming against the current. You start being carried by it. And that is the precise moment when what feels like miracles begin to arrive. If you're ready to unlock this wisdom for yourself, type into the comments right now, "My home attracts wealth." I read every single comment that comes through, and I want to see hundreds, thousands of these declarations flooding in. Write it before we move forward. Write it now. I already know what your life looks like on the inside. You open your eyes in the morning with that familiar weight pressing down on your chest, that low hum of worry that never quite goes quiet. You work. You work hard. Harder, probably, than most of the people around you. You aren't lazy. You aren't reckless. You aren't some cautionary tale. And yet, no matter what you try, the money situation refuses to truly evolve. I know because I've sat across thousands of kitchen tables just like yours over the past 40 years, and the script is always hauntingly familiar. The bills keep stacking up. The second you start gaining traction, some unexpected expense drags you right back down. You look around and see people who appear to hustle half as much as you, living lives that seem so much lighter. And the most maddening part of it all is that everyone has advice for you. Work harder, save smarter, manifest more, invest in this, cut out that. None of it ever really works, does it? And I'll tell you why. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit in public. The conventional path to building wealth is fixated entirely on the physical layer. How much money comes in? How much goes out? How much gets invested? And yes, all of those things matter. I'm not dismissing them, but they're only half the picture. If you only work on half, you'll only ever receive half. The Talmud says something striking. A person's livelihood, the exact amount they'll earn in a year, is decreed from above, from one Rosh Hashanah to the next. Most people hear that sentence and assume it means everything is locked in and free will is a myth. That interpretation is deeply flawed. What it really means is that the spiritual pipeline through which your abundance is meant to flow has already been established at a higher level. Your task isn't only to hustle in the physical world. Your task is to make sure that pipeline, that sacred channel, remains open, clean, and completely unobstructed. And this is exactly where your home enters the equation. Your home is the physical reflection of that spiritual pipeline. It is the mirror held up to your inner relationship with abundance. When the wealthiest Jewish families step into your space, they're not critiquing your decor. They're reading the condition of your spiritual channel. And most people, without knowing it, are living inside channels that are almost completely blocked. You've been taught your whole life that money is simply a product of effort and decisions. That's only partially accurate. The Jewish tradition has understood for 3 millennia that wealth runs on 2 tracks at once, the physical and the spiritual. Neglect the spiritual, and no amount of sweat will ever produce lasting prosperity. Let me walk you through the signs. The very first thing the wealthy notice is your entrance. In Jewish tradition, the doorway is not just wood and metal, it's a living portal. It's the mouth through which every vibration feeds into the rest of your home. The Talmud speaks at length about the mezuzah fastened to the doorpost, but the principle reaches far deeper than the object itself. When I walk into a home, the first thing I examine is whether that entryway breathes or whether it chokes. Is there a mountain of unopened mail piled on a side table? Broken umbrellas leaning in the corner? Dead plants? Shoes heaped like a landslide? Every one of those items is a clog in the channel. Every one of them silently announces, I am not prepared for more. I remember visiting a family in New York 15 years ago. Between the 2 spouses, they were pulling in well over $300,000 a year. On paper, they should have been living comfortably. In reality, they were buried under debt they couldn't explain. The second I stepped through their front door, I saw the cause. Boxes from 2 Christmases ago, snapped umbrellas, newspapers yellowing with age, shoes tumbled over one another. The energy couldn't breathe. It was like trying to inhale through a collapsed straw. The second signal they read is the kitchen. In Kabbalistic teaching, the kitchen is the furnace of abundance. It's where raw material is transformed into life itself. This is not poetic language. It's a literal, energetic truth. A kitchen that's chaotic, neglected, or stuffed with expired food is broadcasting a very specific message into the heavens. It's saying, I do not honor what has already been given to me. The Talmud is unmistakable on this point. Gratitude and respect for what you currently possess is what unlocks the gate for more. Neglect closes that gate shut. Picture your kitchen right now in your mind. Not tomorrow. Right now. Is it orderly? Are there forgotten things rotting at the back of the refrigerator? Is your stovetop clean? These aren't trivial questions. These are the details that determine whether your home is a chalice for abundance or a cage of lack. The third sign is the one that stuns people the most because nobody ever talks about it. It's your bedroom. More specifically, what you've shoved under your bed and what sits on top of your nightstand. In Jewish mystical thought, the bedroom is the chamber of restoration, the place where the soul quietly rises at night to reconnect with its source. But when that space is cluttered, when boxes of forgotten papers are crammed under your mattress, when your nightstand is a graveyard of dusty glasses and tangled cords, you're disrupting that sacred reconnection. Years ago, I pulled boxes of old records out from under my own bed. Within days, my sleep deepened, my thinking sharpened, and opportunities I'd been waiting on for months finally arrived. Coincidence? After 40 years in this field, I no longer believe such a thing exists. The fourth sign is broken objects. The Talmud states it plainly. A shattered vessel cannot hold a blessing. Look around your home. A clock frozen in time, a chair that wobbles, a light bulb that burned out last month, a door that sticks. Every one of those is a cracked vessel leaking your prosperity drop by drop. Wealthy Jewish families repair or remove immediately. No middle ground. Because every broken thing you tolerate whispers to the universe, I accept brokenness. And the universe always answers what you accept. The fifth and most subtle sign is what I call the atmosphere of expectation. Is there a seat at your table as though a guest is coming? Is there fresh food, not survival food, but food of celebration? Are books open and alive instead of decorating shelves? Is the lighting warm, intentional, awake? The Talmud says, act as though it already is, and so it shall become. Your home must carry the posture of prosperity before prosperity ever walks through the door. Now I'm going to walk you through the exact method to transform your home from a broadcaster of poverty into a beacon of wealth. This practice is not casual. When you activate it, real energy begins to shift. Pick a morning when you won't be interrupted. Friday morning is most potent. Be calm. Be clear. Know exactly what you're asking for. You'll need 4 things. First, unprocessed sea salt, about 3 tablespoons. Salt sealed the covenant between the Creator and the Jewish people. It purifies, preserves, and protects. Second, a plain white candle. White represents divine loving-kindness, the purest stream of spiritual light. Third, a clean bowl of fresh water. Water is the medium through which blessing travels from the unseen into the seen. Fourth, a coin you've carried for at least a day, one that holds your current financial signature. Now here is the procedure. Stand just inside your main entrance, facing out. Sprinkle a thin line of salt across the threshold from left to right. Say, I consecrate this entrance. Only abundance, blessing, and prosperity may cross here. All scarcity is refused. Visualize golden light sealing the doorway. Next, take the candle into the room where your family gathers most. Light it and say, this flame is the divine abundance flowing into my home. Every shadow of financial struggle is dissolved. Watch the flame for 30 seconds. A steady flame means the channel is opening. A flicker means resistance is being cleared, which is actually good. Place the water beside the candle and drop the coin in. As it sinks, say, as this coin enters the water, so does abundance enter my life from every expected and unexpected source. See the water glowing gold, then walk slowly through every room. In each one, pause and say, this room serves my prosperity. Anything here that doesn't serve my highest good is released now. Notice what catches your eye. Address it after the ritual. Finally, return to the entrance. Place both hands on the doorframe. Close your eyes. Say, I seal this home with the energy of abundance. I am worthy. I am ready. I receive now with gratitude and responsibility. Hold for 60 seconds. Breathe. Within 24 hours, expect lightness, clarity, sudden optimism. Within 3 to 7 days, expect tangible movement, an unexpected check, a forgiven debt, a phone call that leads somewhere real. Within 30 days, the full transformation should be visible. But listen carefully. Never perform this with anger or revenge in your heart. The energy amplifies whatever you bring. Never skip the salt, because without it, you open channels without protection. And never announce this ritual before results arrive, because the Talmud teaches that blessing lives only in what is hidden from the eye. There is a passage that says, "Where a person's thoughts are, that is where the person truly is." What it means is that your environment is a direct photograph of your inner world. Clutter outside is clutter inside, and it works in reverse. Clean your home, and you clean your mind. Fill your space with intention, and your consciousness fills with purpose. I've taught this to thousands of people over 40 years. Single mothers who went from barely surviving to owning their own homes within a year. Men unemployed for months receiving multiple offers within weeks. Couples on the brink of ruin pulled back to solid ground. In every case, they followed the steps without improvising. That is all you need to do. We are living in one of the most financially uncertain eras in modern memory. Inflation keeps squeezing families. Interest rates refuse to loosen their grip. Housing, food, fuel, everything climbs while wages crawl. This is exactly the moment this ancient wisdom becomes most urgent. So if this video moved something in you, do not let it slip away. Go down into the description right now, grab your copy of the Ancient Wealth Code, perform the ritual tonight, and come back to this video in 30 days to tell me in the comments what shifted. Because your home is either pulling wealth toward you or pushing it away. Starting today, you get to choose which one.